Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Champion Show. I'm Nick Anastos, along with Bob Morin, set for another week of fantasy football advice. 4 weeks in the bag, week 5 around the corner. We have all the news, analysis, and, of course, statistics that you need here on the Fantasy Champion Show. Once again, I'm Nick Anastos. This is Bob Morin. The big talk of the week is Brian Hartline in terms of ad drops. He obviously went bananas week 4 for the Dolphins, 253 yards. I made this point earlier in the day. Fantasy veterans know Brian Hartline because he's been around for a minute. He's a 5-year vet, never put up spectacular numbers, whether it was with Miami or with Minnesota. I was always going to say that you should always proceed with caution when running into a veteran guy like that with not a great track record. What do you think about Brian Hartline?
I think Brian Hartline, he's one of those guys that, like you said, he's been around. He's touched on the fantasy scene briefly here and there, but has never been really consistency has lacked his whole career. But I think right now, ride the wave. You know, him and Devon Bess are both playing pretty well. I like him. Yeah, I think he's for what it is right now in the season, where he is, what's going on there. I would say, go with them.
Well, they're throwing the football. They have a rookie quarterback. Yeah. They have a great offensive line. They could run it a little bit with Reggie Bush. Devon Bess is a guy in PPR leagues, I think, has a lot of value, but in regular leagues as well, because he works over the middle well. He works out of the slot well. He's got good hands. He's a possession receiver. And Brian Hartline is the guy in that offense now under Joe Philbin that's going to stretch the field, kind of the Greg Jennings role with the Packers, so to speak, last year. Underneath stuff, Devon Bess. So I think Bess is probably the more consistent week-to-week option moving forward.
Yeah, I just think I can see Hartline getting more scores, touchdowns, But,
big plays.
Yeah, big plays, exactly. And a lot of people have to remember, too, bye weeks are coming up. So these guys, they are relevant because they will be in starting lineups either for yourself or somebody else. But both guys right now are decent options. I would say if you're using them, chances are, you were lacking depth at the position to begin with. So you got lucky on, Hartline last week if you had him in the lineup.
This is the Week 5 edition of the Fantasy Champion Show. I'm Nick Anastos along with Bob Morin, breaking down some of the guys who might be available in your league if you're in a deeper league, a dynasty league, guys that might make an impact this week. And Rashard Mendenhall is a guy who kind of fits that dynasty mold, was a top-round pick of mine, actually, back in 2008 when he came out as a rookie. And unfortunately, he blew out his ACL. And you look at the history of some of the top backs that have suffered that exact injury. The result is they only play anywhere from 15 to 20 games, period, for the rest of their career. So he was a guy I saw on his way out. I thought he had good athletic ability behind an offensive line with the Steelers that had trouble running the football last year, the year before that, the year before that. And now this year, without Mendenhall, it's been 2.5 a carry between Dwyer and who am I forgetting? Dwyer and Redmond. Isaac Redmond. So Rashard Mendenhall, if he's there, and he's 63% owned, I think, in ESPN leagues, you have to go grab him. But if not, and you have him on the bench, what do you expect from Rashard Mendenhall?
I would expect, going out there, maybe like 10 points. I would say maybe not 100 yards. If he gets in the end zone, obviously that will fluctuate. But I would expect probably around 8 to 10 points out of him this week. That's what I'm expecting.
So how many yards?
All
yards?
It could be all yards. If he gets the touchdown, maybe 40 or 50 yards, something like that. I don't think your expectations for a guy, his first game like this, can be very high. I think a ceiling of 10 is appropriate. So don't go out there and expecting, Arian Foster numbers.
We'll see how many carries.
Exactly. That's going to be a big factor,
a big
too,
indicator.
Obviously. So.
But Rashard Mendenhall, definitely a guy I think on the way out, but can help you immediately on the flex spot. Maybe I'd look elsewhere though before giving him the green light to actually start at the flex position. Yeah. All right, another guy I want to mention is James Jones, who has been kind of the benefactor with Greg Jennings out. I think the Packers offense did struggle early on because of the opponent. They faced top 3 defenses in the first, or top 5 or so defenses in the NFL in the first 3 weeks of the schedule. Put a little bit of a lid on Aaron Rodgers' production, which hurt fantasy owners, of course, especially those that invested him in the first round. Greg Jennings has been hurt. He hasn't been spectacular when he's been in there, and he's going to be a question mark, I think, the rest of the year week to week based on that groin injury. So who benefits is James Jones, who comes in. He's got the Colts this week. They should score a lot of points, 40-plus points. I'll put it on record.
Oh, man.
James Jones can go deep. He's big. He's 6'2". He's fast. He's got hands. They can use him on a number of different routes, the drag route horizontally. So I think there's enough balls in Green Bay from now on, based on their schedule, to go around where James Jones gets a big piece of the pie.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. James Jones is one of those guys in a lot of leagues. He probably wasn't even drafted, wouldn't you say? In our league, he
wasn't drafted. Somehow he wasn't drafted.
He's not even. He's not in our free agent pool. So last year he was one of those guys. He was a big sleeper coming into the season, if I recall. Last year didn't really perform, and went undrafted in a lot of leagues. And this year he's starting to show what he can be. And I think going forward he can definitely be a mainstay in a fantasy lineup, especially with Greg Jennings out.
This is the Fantasy Champions Show, part of the Fantasy Champions Network. I'm Nick Anastos alongside Bob Morin. It's the Week 5 edition of the Fantasy Champions Show, talking about players who might be available, probably are available in deeper leagues. Who else do you like this week?
As a sleeper this week?
Yeah, a potential guy who might be available that could help you.
Well, I think we were talking a little bit about Jerome Simpson. If people didn't jump on him last week, his first game back, he didn't do so well. But no one really did well because they didn't throw the ball a lot last week. I think Ponder had like 111 yards.
Right.
It just wasn't. I think they're more run heavy. So look for Jerome Simpson as the year continues. Definitely to maybe put up some numbers. He did well last year with Cincinnati.
Yeah, so. He went over the 100-yard mark, I think, 3 times last year with the Bengals. He's the deep threat, so to speak, that Minnesota didn't have.
They don't let Percy Harvin go, much more than 10 yards down, 15 yards down the field. So
right, he's got that kind of slot/wingback role with Minnesota. But now here comes Simpson again to stretch the field. He's an athlete. He can jump. He can do flips. He's entertaining when he gets into the end zone. There are some comparisons to Sidney Rice, who obviously with the Vikings broke out in 2009, since moved to Seattle, hasn't done much this season. It's partly because the Seahawks don't throw the football that often. But anyway, Jerome Simpson, definitely a guy. I'm not sure I would go ahead and start him.
No.
But I'd grab him and watch and see what happens down the road, because I think at some point, probably sooner rather than later, he'll make an impact.
Yeah, with injuries and bye weeks, that's number one concern of people right now in fantasy is the bye weeks that are started, this past week, and injuries going forward. And depth is huge. I know last year when I won the championship in our league, if it wasn't for depth, I wouldn't have been anywhere. I had running backs, wide receivers that I could play that were decent plays.
Right, depth is the name of the game, and these weeks are important too, because you take a look around, starting to figure out who's for real, who's a contender. And you say, okay, does my roster size up to theirs? And do I go ahead and panic and have to make a move now? Not panic. I don't like panic's too strong of a word, but feel the necessity to make a move now? It depends. If you're 2-2 and you've struggled, if you're 1-3, I think definitely don't sell the farm. It's not panic mode. There's not a fire alarm going off, but it's time to start to at least size up around the league, see if there's moves available, other needs for teams, and really take a look. I think this is the point in the season, week 5, now in October, calendar-wise, that becomes necessary.
Oh, yeah, and you touched on it 100%. This is where guys really start to really feel, you get a feel for if a guy is for real or what's going on with the team. The team will start to actually form and develop, what they're going to be throughout the season. So definitely huge. Just going to the NFL right now, if the Saints don't win this week, that's huge for them. So look at it as fantasy to NFL. This is a huge week for everybody.
I'm Nick Anastos. He's Bob Morin. This is the Fantasy Champions Show. MC the Brick is behind the camera. This is the Fantasy Champions Network. Check us out on Facebook and on YouTube as well. Looking ahead to week 5, what are some of the matchups, Bob, that you like? First of all, you mentioned bye weeks, and I do want to add this. Say what you want about the Dallas Cowboys, and obviously there's people who love them, there's people who hate them.
Yep.
They have a bunch of stars. They have individuals, and individuals in fantasy means that they're individuals in fantasy. They can help. It doesn't matter what's going on drama-wise with the team. If you have guys who can produce and guys who are stars, then chances are there's a lot of people around the league now, a lot of fantasy owners who are looking to replace those guys. Like, I'm Cowboy heavy, for instance, in the Dynasty League. I've got Austin, I've got Witten, I've got DeMarcus Ware, I've got Sean Lee, and all of them have either played, started, or have held a role throughout each of the 4 weeks of the season. So I'm hit hard with buys this week. And again, if you're thin via injury, via bad draft, via underperformance on the bench, now more than ever is the time to hit the wire. Unfortunately, Bob, there's not much on the wire.
No, and Detroit's off this week too.
Detroit is another team
which is a big one. Calvin Johnson, running backs have been playing. LaShore's coming along. His first game did well. Second game, not so well. But bye week this week. But yeah, the Calvin Johnson is a big one for people. So if you run into the guy who has him, nice break this week for him. So
all right, let's talk about quarterbacks here, and listen up for Patriots fans in particular here. Brady, Manning, meeting for the 12th time in their career. Assess Peyton Manning real quick, because I'll tell you what, everyone says, oh, he's lost a step, he's been awful. They're all basing that on one quarter of Monday Night Football in week 2. Because outside of the second quarter, or the first quarter, in that week 2 matchup at Atlanta, he's been pretty good. Close to 1,200 yards, 8 touchdowns, no picks outside of that first quarter where he threw 3, and that's all he's got on the season. So Peyton Manning, he's definitely lost a little bit on the deep throw.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter because he's so in control of the offense. The short stuff will kill you. The mix of the run on the audible will kill you. Yeah. Peyton Manning's a master for a reason, a 4-time MVP. He's going to come into Foxborough and move the football up and down the field.
Yeah, he definitely should be able to move the football. Like you said, his one bad quarter that he had, that's all. The guy's been he's been great. And even if you watch that game, that quarter, there were some bad breaks too. Some receivers running some bad routes. There was a couple bad.
The first one was, I think, miscommunication.
Yeah, there's some miscommunication. You can't always blame it on the quarterback. So I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's on one of my teams. I've started him every week except for the week he had all the interceptions. I started Ben Roethlisberger because he had a better matchup.
Right.
And it's worked out fine for me. He's definitely is he a top 12 quarterback right now? Yes.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
So he's a starter, and I feel good having him in my lineup every game. I know I can. I feel like I can win because he has that big game potential.
Yeah.
Only like 5 guys in this league have on a regular basis.
This is the Fantasy Champion Show. Check us out each Wednesday on Facebook as we break down the Week 5 matchup. Start 'em, sit 'em time, Bob. Quarterbacks. One sit 'em in particular I was taking a look at. If you're starting Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'd cancel those plans against the Niners. They're not going to be able to move the football.
Yeah, he's a definite.
But any star, and you talked a moment ago about Peyton Manning being a top 5 guy you could rely upon to blow up. Are there any star/top 10 quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks that worry you in Week 5?
I think that Phillip Rivers, honestly, I think a lot of people, I know people have been throwing all over the Saints. I just think this is the Saints game. This is Drew Brees' night. And I just think that don't be surprised, Phillip Rivers.
So you think the defense will come out?
I think there's going to be some things.
In support of
I just think they're going to be pumped up. And this is a must-win for the Saints. And I don't think the Saints are as bad as they are. Their defense is awful, obviously. But maybe this is the week they'll get it together, I'm just going out on a limb. You asked me for maybe a star quarterback. I guess Phillip Rivers is in trouble. He's in that category. So,
how about quarterbacks you like?
Quarterbacks I love the Brady and Manning matchup. I think obviously any of those guys you're going to roll with. I like Ben Roethlisberger too this week. So, yeah.
Who are the Steelers playing?
I forget who they're playing. That's why I tried to go by it.
Well, it doesn't matter, I guess. You have that much faith.
No, I can't recall who he's playing, and that's why it's bothering me right
now. We will take a look at quarterbacks who, like we mentioned earlier, have a chance to really start to get their feet under them, the wind behind their sails. And I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but again, I think that Aaron Rodgers owners have overreacted a little bit up until this point. Maybe they calmed down. They did calm down after Week 4.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you what, there's a big green light They got the Colts this week. They got 3 or 4 games against secondaries that have been suspect. And any secondary is going to seem suspect when you compare them to their first 3 opponents, the 49ers, who bottled up everything in that football game. The Bears, you saw what they did Monday night against the Cowboys on national TV. The Seahawks are another athletic machine. Those are 3 very tough matchups, and what happens? They face the Saints, and it's business as usual. So I really think that Aaron Rodgers fans can relax. I wouldn't panic and necessarily look to sell the farm, as I mentioned before. You've got a quarterback who can give you that chance to win. Week in and week out. And I think, again, moving forward, starting last week, but continuing this week against the Colts, you're going to see a lot of defenses getting carved up by Aaron Rodgers. Yeah,
it's all there. They've just been waiting to break out. And like you said, it's just been bad luck. The schedule, the defenses are bad. But, yeah, I would have to go, like I said, I'm really keen in on that Denver-New England game. I think Peyton Manning and Tom Brady they're going to go nuts. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I know you have to agree with me on that.
And the pieces around
both defenses aren't,
green lights for everybody around.
Brandon Lloyd, we saw last week, he finally stepped up. That was a beautiful catch. McGahee, awesome. Decker has been more consistent now. Demarius Thomas, he's been on and off. But
what about Brandon Bolden?
Yeah, that's a great question, because right now there's a story going on in New England. Well, there has been with the running backs, but Bolden's entered the equation, and you have Morin, who's coming back. He's on his way. I think he got a carry.
He had 1 carry.
1 carry. He had like 5 total yards. Still not relevant yet, but definitely Bolden and Ridley are.
And it comes back. It comes back to the Bill Belichick backfield, which is almost like Mike Shanahan's.
It's tough.
Only they don't run it as much as Shanahan. It's the same in that they rotate backs. And, Brandon Bolden kind of came out of nowhere. I think, hardcore Patriots fans may have started seeing it coming because he did make the roster to begin with.
Yeah.
So you knew he had, and he wasn't on special teams, so you knew he was capable. But the offensive line looked really good against Buffalo. You're right. Yep. We'll see if the Broncos defense can step up. They've underachieved a little bit to this point, especially against the run. So, again, we'll see. But you like all players, I agree, in the New England and Denver matchup. This is the Fantasy Champion Show. I'm Nick Anastos, along with Bob Morin, taking a look at Week 5 in the fantasy football world. Running backs, C.J. Spiller. Sit him?
I'm sitting him this week for sure. I want to see him come back and do what he did before he got hurt, because he was electric. He was the best running back in the league in my mind.
Yeah.
And that injury, stat-wise, and that injury he had for a running back, that's going to be uncomfortable. He fumbled the ball last week. That's alarming to me. I don't want to put
goal line.
Yeah, and I don't want to put a guy in the game that's going to, be coughing up the ball because he's injured. Because obviously that's going to affect everything.
Right.
It's a pain thing. It's all about the pain tolerance. So yeah, I would sit him until he does.
Sit Fred Jackson too?
Yes, I would sit all Buffalo until they go out and do something. I know it's tough, but some people might be stuck and they might have to start these guys. So obviously go ahead, but if you don't need to.
But the matchup to me is what scares me.
No, yeah, the Niners are going to crush them. I don't think anybody on the Bills is worth starting. Maybe their kicker. I don't know. That's about it. So Ryan Lindell, you're my Buffalo Bills start of the week.
All right, what about backs? Who do you like?
Who do I like this week? Well, this is the most obvious one in the league, but I just want to throw it out there because Arian Foster's playing the Jets on Monday night, and I think he's going to have an absolute field day. But obviously, he's starting in every league. But,
and probably untouchable, unapproachable.
Yeah, he's definitely unapproachable. But I like, I just already touched on the Pats, but I was going to say, I like both Pats running backs to start them. We like McGahee. I'd have to say, who's the other bye team this week? It's Oakland, right? They're off too.
Yeah, Oakland's off.
And Oakland's off. Yeah, I was just thinking about it. And let's talk about. I wanted to talk about Matt Forte and Michael Bush.
Yeah.
Because that's an interesting story right now. That
Forte I thought looked pretty good Monday.
It did look pretty good, but what do you think about that going ahead? Do you think Bush is gonna obviously take the back seat, but he's still gonna get the goal line? But it's a tough one right now. Would you play Forte? Based on what you saw last week, where he was clearly limping at the end of the game, though, too.
Well, I don't know. I'd monitor it, but if he's going to be out there, I mean, he sprained his ankle, came back in.
Yeah, they retaped
in the first half,
yeah,
right? Retaped, and he still made some plays. So,
he did.
If he's healthy enough to suit up, I don't think there's any question.
Yeah.
No matter what team he's on, you got to play him.
It's like Steven Jackson this week. We need to talk about him and Ryan Williams. That matchup tomorrow night, I think, is intriguing to a lot of owners because Steven Jackson, I know he's on your team and he's on one of my teams in the league, and I'm sitting him because I feel guys that are better this week than he would be.
Well, they're playing that front seven of Arizona.
And Arizona has been, great defensively, a surprise. Well, to some, maybe their run or their line was a surprise. I always knew they had a great secondary, young, fast. So, but how about Ryan Williams?
I mean, Ryan Williams.
After last week.
I'm still waiting to see on Ryan Williams. He hasn't earned it with me yet.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, he showed great signs in college. I always had a question about his size because he's small. But then he goes out and gets hurt and doesn't play at all the whole year last year, coming back from an injury. He fumbles in week 2 against the Patriots, did nothing in week 1, nothing in week 2. Did have a productive week 3, 80 yards and a touchdown, but again, nothing last week. If he's applying for a job and hands me a resume and I take a look and he has no years under his belt, all he has is 4 games and 3 of them are bad, he's not starting for me.
Yeah, but if you need him and based on a matchup, maybe this week the Rams have not, done well against the run. So if you need a guy, why wouldn't you play him? The Rams really.
So he showed you enough in week 3 to convince you that it's he's capable of doing it this week.
Put it this way, I'll tell you right now, I'm starting him over C.J. Spiller. I'm starting him over Steven Jackson. I'm starting him over Michael Bush.
I wouldn't start him over Steven Jackson.
Well, I am, so this is a fact. I'm just telling you right now. This is what's going on.
Nothing but stats and facts here.
Well, it's what's happening, and, that just shows you. I think this could be not a breakout. He had a little breakout game, but this could be a big step for him, I think, this week.
What do you expect from Steven Jackson against Arizona?
See, the problem.
Yards.
Well, that's the problem. I'm thinking he's going to do exactly what he did this past week. What do you have, like 67 yards?
67 all-purpose.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what he's going to do this week, I bet. I'd be surprised if he gets in the end zone. And if he doesn't get in the end zone, maybe he'd have 100 yards, but I'm not expecting that.
See, I think he does. I think he does get in the end zone. I think he's got
Depends
something to
how
prove.
healthy
I think
he is.
St. Louis has something to prove.
Yeah.
I think, and on short rest, it scares me a little bit too. But again, he has been playing. He played the whole game.
Yeah, but he didn't play. He was in and out, though. Let's be honest.
Well, they were sheltering him a little bit.
Yeah, but he's not 100% healthy, so don't let this guy.
I don't know. I think this is a close ball game. So the Rams aren't going to be trailing. I think he'll be involved in the second half when they need to move the football. The first downs will be meaningful because it'll be close.
Yeah.
You rely on your best player down the stretch. I think he has a bounce-back week because he's that good. Yes, he's not 100% healthy. That may affect his touches a little bit, but he's still 245 pounds at 6'2" that can run people over. I like Steven Jackson. Go ahead and start him, whether he's a necessity or not. On your lineup in terms of depth-wise, he's going to produce. Put it in there.
Okay, well, I'm disagreeing. So.
All right, wide receivers. Wide receivers.
You don't want to argue, huh?
Well, I just gave you my point.
Yeah, I know, but I don't agree with it 100% because I don't think.
Well, that's fine.
I think when the guy's injured like a guy, when a guy's injured like that, though, it's such a big risk. So yeah, I love Steven Jackson. Don't get me wrong. So I just want to say. Well, there's a big question mark. It's just a big risk. I'm a guy that injury, I don't like the risks.
Look at the injury. It's a groin injury, which means it's going to be a discussion for the next month.
Definitely.
You're going to hear about it Wednesday. You're going to hear about it Thursday. You're going to hear about it Friday.
Short rest. You said it yourself, too. That's another thing that's the big question mark. A lot of these guys that have played in these Thursday night games said if it was Sunday, I would have been able to play. But Thursday rolls along, and they're inactive all of a sudden. So, Jonathan Stewart had the same, deal, not the same injury, same situation. So I'm just saying, I agree with you, Nick, 100% on Steven Jackson as a player, but that injury is the only thing why I have him ranked so low.
I don't care. Williams, when compared to Ryan Williams.
We'll make a off-screen side bet on that.
All right. Wide receivers. Anybody jump out at you? Characteristics. For matchup-wise, week 5. What about Bartum? You like him? You buying that?
No, I'm not.
Javier Bartum? You haven't seen enough,
Ramses Bartum?
Ramses Bartum.
Yeah, Ramses Bartum.
Javier Bartum is the actor. Ramses Bartum.
I think that he's...
he didn't do much last week, right?
No, he didn't. And he's the better of the two. Ruben Randall's there. And I just think that when Nix is back, and he will be back, it's just a matter of, a few weeks. I think he'll be irrelevant. It's like I talked about, the second show we had, I talked about Ogletree, how he was going to be a fluke, and that's exactly what's happened. All the people went out there and, jumped on his ass and, and boom, so he's not doing much.
And that's always a thing to be aware of, is that flash in the pan.
Exactly.
And sometimes you can see it coming. It's based on situation. It's based on track record. It's based on, as I said before, resume. So you can kind of smell it coming. And that brings us all the way back to the first player we discussed tonight, the hot topic for Week 5, Brian Hartline.
Yeah.
Is he just another Bardem, another Ogletree, another guy that's going to disappear?
Yeah. No.
See, I don't know. I think you have a better chance with Hartline because he's
a
on
veteran,
a team.
too.
He's a vet. Well, yeah, he's a veteran, so he can play a little bit. But you have to look at the offense there in Miami and what they're trying to do, and that's create a balanced attack that begins with Reggie Bush on the ground, but it's not exclusively Bush like it was last year, or the run game with Daniel Thomas, Lamar Miller, whoever you throw in there. Now they got a new quarterback, a new coordinator, a new head coach, throwing it around a little bit. And who's there? Brian Hartline and Devon Bess. They traded Brandon Marshall. The Ocho Cinco thing didn't work out. So the last two men standing are Hartline, who has looked good, and they've looked to throw to him. 12 targets last week. And Devon Bess, the underneath guy who's been there all along. Not a flashy guy, an Austin Collie type, with a little bit more speed is how I like to look at him. So I like Bess. I like Hartline, but they come with asterisks, based on, again, track record and the fact that perhaps these guys just aren't good enough to be fantasy stars and command spots automatically from here on out.
Who knows, though, what will happen with that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Andre Johnson over there in Houston. What do you think about him this year after last year's dismal?
No, I think he's fine.
Exactly. A lot of people sold on him in the offseason, probably maybe gave up on him a little bit. I know there were some stupid owners out there. Not many people we talk to, but some JV owners out there in the lower ranks of fantasy that probably gave up on Johnson.
Shame on them.
It's because they don't watch the games. They see the numbers and the stats, and there it is. A lot of people, honestly, that play fantasy have never even seen a guy on their team play. I guarantee. I'll make a bet.
What is a lot of people?
I would say over 50% of the people who play fantasy football.
You think so?
Yeah.
I've never seen one player on their team play.
No. I'm saying a player on their team, though, or somebody they drafted, they've never seen him play before, or they don't know much about him. They'll just go draft him.
Yeah.
Or like Andre Johnson, Houston's in a market. Until recently, no one really saw Houston play unless the Patriots played them. And, the red zone, not everybody has the red zone. Not everyone has the access to all the games because of how the NFL is.
Right.
We're sheltered as fans to see some of these guys, though, so it's not really their fault.
We're sheltered as fans.
We are. It's because there's a greedy, thing in this world. It's awful. It's called money. So it's not awful, but it brings out the worst in people, and we get shafted because we're the little people.
That's correct. I guess that goes for everything.
Yeah.
So those are your Week 5 looks. Hartline. Who else we talk about tonight? Bess, Mendenhall, green lights. We like all the pieces in the Patriots
and
Denver game. I like all the Packers.
Saints, you have to roll with them, and Chargers. I think that, depending. I said Phillip Rivers could have a bad game. That was kind of like a deep one. I might be like, I told you so, but there's also an asterisk there.
Or you think it's just going to be a shootout?
Exactly. It could go either way, but I know Drew Brees is going to feed, I think, and I think Lance Moore. We saw Colston break out. You were excited about that last week, so it's good to see him because a lot of owners were relying on him to be a bigger piece.
And real quick on the Saints, they're going to put up points. They have been putting up points. Just
the defense
fine.
just stinks.
Right. So all this nonsense about sell all the Saints you got, forget it.
Sell Ingram. That's about it. If you're not in a keeper league, definitely sell him.
Yeah, if you're not. He doesn't have starting value right now.
No,
and
he's
won't
awful.
because they rotate backs in New Orleans.
Yeah.
All right, that's about it for MC the Brick. Bob Morin, another successful mission. Week 5 on the way. Good luck this weekend. This has been the Fantasy Champion Show. I'm Nick Anastos, part of the Fantasy Champions Network.
Go.